wanted to thank you, and I have to say I'm just a huge fan of your work as a fellow decorator. You're very inspiring of of
Oh, thank
your
you.
projects. I mean, I'm so glad to be able to speak with you. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
I have no idea how you take over these massive projects. I mean, it's with Andor, you had two seasons. Did you go from season one right into two?
No,
No.
um, no, we didn't. There was a break, thankfully, because it was so massive
Yeah.
and very full on. So it was good to have a break, but we all knew we were breaking and roughly when the next one was going to come back. So I sort of made sure that I did a film project in between, and that it finished when season two started again because I really did not want anyone else to do season two. It season one and Andor and working with Luke and Tony and the actors and the whole project was such an amazing experience. I was like absolutely
Right.
um, I would have not worked and waited, but
Right.
luckily I got a film that fitted in between. So yes, I had a break and I couldn't wait to start season two again.
Oh, that's awesome. I can imagine wanting a break, but like you said, like not giving up too much. Like it's always kind of on your
No,
mind.
no, no, no. Was excited, had yeah, excited to come back,
Yeah.
and and after learning so much on season one as well, and understanding the characters and the Star Wars world, we just dived straight back in it when we started again. So it's a huge advantage.
When you're replicating things from the some of the original films, are you just deep diving every day into the and watch rewatching like rewatching Star Wars a million times? Is it that or is
Yeah.
it new? Is this like we'll make it what we want? Which I don't think you
No,
because there's too many
no,
Star
not
Wars
at
things.
all. No, no,
Yeah.
not at all. I mean, the 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 thing about Star Wars is unless you respect its parameters and what it's about and understand what's been before, then you're going to miss, you have we have to you have to really understand what Star Wars is and the language, the design language of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And on one, I really got to grips with it, and I still had to continue on two. But luckily, I had really got to grips with it on one. So always been a Star Wars fan, have sons, husband, brother, so I kind of had an advantage that I've always been surrounded by Star Wars and Star Wars books and Star Wars Lego. So I kind of understood the world anyway. Um, but no, the fantastic thing about Lucasfilms is they have an amazing archive as well. So it's all accessible. So I continually um, cross-reference and go back. And that's also, I think, the amazing thing is that it's that a lot of stuff we designed from scratch,
Yeah.
but also we're paying homage to shapes and designs, even if we're not using something physically that was used before. So, yeah, very much tried to design something fresh with Luke, but respectfully stay within the parameters of Star Wars and hope it's still that hope that Andor one and Andor two feel something new and refreshing, but Star Wars still, and also lots of Easter eggs,
Yeah. Oh
planted
yeah.
in there from
I know.
from set deck.
I was definitely going to ask you about that because I'm sure. I mean, I'm a Star Wars fan. I did a movie about Star Wars fans, which was
Oh,
so
did
much fun,
you?
which was so much fun. And I we could not have done that film without Star Wars fans helping us do it, like costumes and like set piece, like blasters and reproductions and stuff and everything, because it was a smaller film. But I hear you of like the Easter egg in a Star Wars film is huge. Like
Yeah,
like
yeah, and it'll be appreciated.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Things like, yeah, I mean things that we put there's something called an evil barrel that is kind of like a dustbin turned upside down and painted that was in the Empire and was used throughout Star Wars. And this the fans are going to know what they are. And so I put those in the hangar in the the
Mm.
the first set we did when Cassian stole the TIE
Still,
fighter. So I put those really iconic shapes back into that. But then really subtle Easter eggs as well, whether it's shapes or reusing something or changing it, or for the ships, when we did Luthen's ship, I know that back in the day they used orange squeezers and sprayed them up and made them into light. So we did lemon squeezers, and everything was
right.
like, everything was always rifting back to what Star Wars is, the original Star Wars, and obviously, and then leading into Rogue One. But yeah, very
Um,
much so.
How much prep time did you have for between seasons for this?
Um, like 6 months,
6 months.
but it was longer because the actors strike, so I continued
Um,
to work.
right.
And also what was great is we'd already established this kind of Andor language, my relationship with Luke. We were kind of, he'd go off architecturally, I'd go off set deck wise, and we'd both come back and join in the middle, and it just worked because we kind of had nailed our language together. We'd discussed the world and characters and textures, and then he'd go off and design um, this amazing Gorman world, and I'd kind of brought reference of all my set deck things, from furniture to lights to shop, and does what was amazing is that he had an understanding that I needed to be at the same speed as him. So I
Mm.
couldn't, we did it together because it took as long to manufacture and design all the furniture and all the set deck elements as it did the construction. So we had to evolve it together, which was really exciting and bouncing ideas.
Did you, I mean, I obviously I know this, but you had to make everything almost.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
had to
I mean,
make everything.
I'd say 85% was I mood board, I concept. I had 5 concept artists just in set deck, huge amounts. I think in season 2, set deck alone produced over 500 drawings.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's 500 drawings we had to concept, draw, and then manufacture. And that's not including just the purchases and adaptation. So everything else, my buying team then purchased and adapted. So everything was painted, adapted, or designed. Everything. There was not one prop or piece of dressing in the whole of Andor that was just, oh yeah, let's get that off the shelf and put it in. Everything was graphic, painted, or designed. Everything, which
So,
is a massive task, but it was
uh,
extremely
well,
fun.
yeah, because there's no room for, hey, you know what? We might look over here now. Like, there's no room for, we want them to be at a table instead of the walk and talk. Or, there's like, well, I gotta make that. I can't just pop up a,
Yeah, so everything,
yeah,
yeah, exactly. So everything had to be. So I showed Tony, I obviously showed Luke,
yeah.
he's the designer, and obviously I had to get his approval, but showed everything to Tony. So had to get to, like, this was my, I love, I mean, do you know my favorite thing about doing Andor
Yeah,
was all the kitchens I had to design. I mean,
right.
I really, really love that. So this was obviously the safe house kitchen.
Yeah.
Um, and what was great is compared that then with Dedra's kitchen, and then compare that to Cyril's mum's,
Oh, wait, I
you
have,
know, on,
I have
oh
both.
yeah, and Dedra's kitchen.
Yeah.
Ah, and I kind of found some really cool 1960. Yeah, so that
Yes.
ah, so that was so they're my almost. they were my three favorite sets to do as far as set deck, because of designing the kitchens. And
Ugh,
in the you can see in the back of shot here, I mean, you can't see the rest of the kitchen. It was very cool, but
mm,
this was rifted from a I kind of took inspiration from a Ralph McQuarrie, so an original Star Wars set and a sketch that he'd done and then kind of, built on it. So everything I took the beginnings of Star
the
Wars and the
history.
shapes and the history really seriously, and then had some fun with it. You know,
Yeah.
um, purchased and we kind of made this 1960s hairdressing unit for Cyril's mother, which was just perfect. And then made that kind of feel like it was belonged to this apartment world and the kitchen. So I mean, it was so much
That
fun,
was so much
so
fun.
much fun.
I loved this set and I could not find a screenshot of it. So this is from my TV because I was like, I have to ask her about this. Like in a decorating sense, this is like,
You
oh.
think
And then we
so
pop
much
in
to
this, hair dryer and then like, and then what are the things on her coffee table? Or like, yeah, what is that a heat? Is it a microwave back there? Like you get this freedom to make these things, but it's also a huge responsibility when you're in this Star Wars world. To keep with, like you're saying, like the history and,
yeah,
make,
language.
yeah,
Yeah.
language, yeah. That's
And I
wonderful.
suppose that's what on Andor 1 I had to really come to terms with and absorb. And I kind of was like, okay, how do I start? And actually, I've done years and years of big period films and Japanese. I started Shogun actually, even though we didn't finish it. And I kind of was like, well, do you know what? This I have to just take this really seriously, like I was doing, a period movie. This is the Bible. This is the history,
Yeah.
right? Like you would if you do a period movie. This is the history. This is when this came in. This is when this came in. This is this shape that was invented then, and consumed it, so that actually eventually it just became I mean, I'm hoping I nailed it, but it became a kind of
Yeah.
I just had an automatic response. I was like, no, that's it. That feels right. That's the right shape. That feels Star Wars because I'd consumed so much. And you think how the span of when it was made over 4 or 5 years, do you know what I mean? With a gap in the middle and the
Yeah.
pandemic, and I didn't stop in the pandemic. We continued to work. So I kind of, yeah. And so I think that's what was amazing about season two. I'd kind of nailed it and then had this confidence moving forward that even though we obviously are trying to do something a bit different because it's very character led,
Yeah.
that sort of I kind of knew when something still felt within the parameters or in an instinct to keep within the parameters of Star Wars and shapes, like, the shapes and the tech. I mean, tech was a big thing. We designed so much tech to go into the walls and the
So many buttons and
appliance.
lights and
Yeah, I mean, we had a
knobs.
serious, yeah, this the set we had a serious practical spark. I mean, we had massive, massive hangar just with practical sparks producing our lights and our panels and
Were you
everything.
3D printing a lot?
Um, No, yeah, 3D printing, but no, most of it was kind of made or molded, or I had a kind of massive carpentry team just for
Mm.
set deck. So they made that counter, then we'd mold on top. And so we had my carpentry team did massive amounts as well as then the prop makers.
Mm.
So because we produced so much furniture, we were like yeah, producing a lot of stuff out of, MDF as well as molding it, as well as casting it. So it was a real combination of everything. There was so much stuff that we kind of had to spread the joy, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was such a massive, massive
So
team of people.
you have so many sets. Like I know that I mean the looks, the other thing is the class of people that you were doing, like this, like the hideout or like their apartment versus like the high end and like
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
still threading it all together in the design is so masterful to me. And making it all like work together, not with just the designer, but the decor all works together. Like you can see like they're trying, they're trying their best to have what the other people have when they used to have the apartment or anything. Like it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's what the gift of Andor was, and that's why there'll probably never be another project like it because actually it it goes into so many different
Yeah.
worlds. I think there's no other, I mean, I'm working on a project at the moment and we're going into different worlds, but there's still not the diversity of
Hmm.
worlds and characters and levels. Even if we were in Coruscant, we were in different parts of Coruscant, and even when I designed a console, I suppose, okay, so the mo really important thing I realized was that there had to be a kind of everything ha if it was a kitchen, we had to know what the kind of lower end
Right.
apartment we were doing, and then what the higher end. So in a way, there was already a kind of one had to be aware of visions ahead of time. So you didn't want to kind of
Right.
you know what I mean? You didn't want to kind of repeat yourself. So you're like, okay, so if this is high end, this will be the lower end. And that's the same with all the consoles as well.
Right.
I kind of, we did I did so many consoles.
Mm.
Um and from Cyril's office with all the green
Oh, wait,
um
I have a
yeah.
picture of that. That is also
Um
my favorite. I mean, I'm gonna get to these
oh, and then
photos.
Mon Mothmas.
The
Oh,
wedding. I have to talk to you about this shop is
that's so
gorgeous.
great.
I
Hey,
know you have so many sets. I'm
can I
so
get hold
sorry.
of these photographs? Oh, yeah, Cyril's office.
Oh,
So,
this is magnificent.
um, so so these consoles, um, were inspired, by something I found in the 60s and
Mhm.
all the consoles down below. And actually, we used a similar design in season one, but it was from the Empire. And
Oh,
so
the
what I
white.
did then, they were black. They were no, they were black. And so what I did, and they were really slick. And there's a big scene with Cyril walking down the ramp, and they're all the workers working at them,
Oh
and
yeah,
they
yeah,
were they were imperial
yeah.
and very
Right.
slick. So I then was like, okay, so this is kind of the Gorman version.
Hmm.
And so I rounded them and changed them and brought the Gorman colors because Luke and I always had a really clear palette of tech. So every world we worked through, we had a very clear palette. So it was
Hmm.
very different. Each world had a clear palette and color. I mean, both of us had worked in a very similar way, and we never disagreed. But there was, you know, he'd have a clear palette, I'd then have a palette, and we sort of stuck to that, if that makes sense. So it's really clear what world you're in
Right.
because it enhances the palette and the style and the homage. This is obviously kind of, homage to Star Wars, very European feel. Um, and so, it was about Gorman. We can't know where the Gorman green from, but Gorman had a color which was a Gorman green, and then it was marble, a bit like Italy, and then it was
Mm.
French, and then and it had a very clear, to us anyway,
Oh
a
yeah.
really by a really clear style, and Luke found some amazing textures, and I mean, I can't obviously
I love
take
that coat
any
rack. I love
credit for the ceiling. I mean, he
Oh,
did
the
an
ceiling.
amazing job of that set. The ceiling looked just amazing. He's a really clever designer, and it was a kind of joy. We just worked so well together. We'd
Yeah,
always I think that we both enhanced each other's work, if that makes sense.
oh yeah. I think too with the in a design world of Star Wars, there are, when you look back to the originals, even there's those simple shapes, but the repetition of the simple shapes that brings that design to life so much. And even in here with his shapes that he has on the glass or on the wall, but then they're bigger for the glass to walk through, and then it's on the ceiling, and then you taking off of that and those shapes and everything and making your consoles. It's just so collaborative and
Yeah,
it's
and the
so
colors and the
beautiful.
style. Yeah, exactly. And in fact, that's exactly what it is. In every set that we did, we knew what the textures and the colors were. We very much developed, and talked about the characters. And so everything feels very individual.
Yeah.
Every set really felt very, and that's what was great about Andor. Tony writes a hugely character base. The actors, it was kind of almost like it was it's a thriller.
These,
It's
I
a
mean,
thriller, but just set in a Star Wars world. So it's so character driven. And then each world, we had a very clear color palette and style and texture and shapes. And so it was, yeah, it was so much fun. And then everything different. And the cafe,
the
you
cafe,
know,
so
that was so
magnificent.
much fun.
This scene, even with the just the design of the window and everything, and I mean how it all comes together so beautifully. It's like I can't. It's like a little French cafe I want to go to, have a little coffee,
Yeah.
croissant. Like
And
it's
and things like everything in there was made.
oh
Everything
yeah,
in there was
look at this.
made,
That's so cool.
and this, I mean, what's funny is this is kind of like all the coffee machines, um, you know, like I take a shape of a really old style of something, and then we'd add pipes, and it kind of felt like a kind of weird cat, they call it calf in Star Wars, I think.
Mm.
Tony did anyway, like a really mad old coffee machine, but it kind of also is meant to feel Star Wars. So you kind of recognize it, but it feels Star Wars. You
Yeah,
recognize it as a something in the real world, but it kind of has a Star Wars twist to it.
yeah. It almost
That's
looks
what
like an
that
android.
like.
I mean, really, it could be like a little android sitting there.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. But even though we know though that's what it's meant to be, you know what I mean? It's still
Yeah.
so yeah, it was really important down to every plate, coffee machine, chair, table, console, bed, kitchen, counter, pan, that everything was well considered. Everything had to have a certain shape that felt Star Wars, a certain shape that embodied that world, and a certain color or texture. So, I mean, it was all style to an inch of its life. Every set, every set.
How
Um,
did you have all the scripts for season two?
no, we
No.
didn't.
Oh,
But Luke and Tony, and there was very much an understanding of what was going to come ahead.
yeah. Mm.
So we developed sets without having a
Right.
script.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean,
that's
they
all.
had a great
It's a lot of us
relationship and
work
bounced back
now.
and forth. Yeah, and I mean things like I was saying earlier, actually, that the wedding. The
Mm.
last day of the shoot, on Andor 1, Tony was being passed around on the iPad because he wasn't there in person. And he said, "Thanks, Rebecca. Amazing work. So great working with you." And he went, "There's a wedding in the next one." And that's all he said. And I was like, oh, and I
Oh,
was like, oh my God. So I knew as the last day of shoot at the end that there was going to be a
wow.
wedding because that's the last thing he said. So I was like, okay, no one else is going to set decorate that wedding. I was like, I
Oh,
knew who was married. I was like, oh my God. So he kind of knew how to get me back. And interestingly, the chandeliers, I don't know if you recognize, I used those in the embassy.
oh, I didn't
Yeah. So there were
realize.
massive, massive chandeliers from the
Oh,
embassy in season one. I mean, they were really a big, big feature. And so, I used them for this too. Anyway, they were massive.
did
They
you?
were like,
Because
they
I
were
know that
like,
You
Yeah,
also
go on.
redid the sofa, right? I read that you redid this sofa for season two. It's the same. Was it the same one? I thought I read.
Yeah, where did you know that? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, because it meant that it felt like it was very much in Mon Mothma's world,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
and also and also can I be really truthful? The time was really tight, so
right.
it meant that we had to, if we separated it, changed it a bit, I made it feel like it was her office, changed the colors because it's in a different that's her embassy and this was her office, and yeah, it worked, right?
It's chandelier.
Because
Oh
you
yeah. I
also
mean, I wouldn't have I read it in another article, so that when I was looking for
did
pictures,
you?
that's
Oh,
the only way I
I don't
knew.
I didn't ever I don't remember ever telling anyone that.
Oh,
I wonder what article that was. How
oh,
funny.
but
Uh,
yeah,
um yes. So that just worked really well. And that was a sort of, yeah, that was a
it's
quick fix. And but changed it. So there was
yeah,
then, her kind of Coruscant work, embassy feel. And again, every glass and every decanter and
yeah.
every tray was kind of, considered. And look, you can see the chandelier
Oh
in
yeah, that's right.
in
You can see it.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
yeah, so that's
you're not running out to IKEA for some glasses. I mean, it's like,
no, no. And those glasses, again, the buyers were amazing and my buying team, Karina and Helen, um my main team, they'd worked on Star Wars before,
mm,
and they kind of understood the language and they also understood my style. And they we'd really, we'd really hunt, and search for the right item and the right fabric and the right color and the right this for everything. We really kind of poured our hearts into it, if that makes sense, so
oh
that
yeah.
everything, when you put it all together, it just kind of sat, and you're like, yeah, that's Mon Mothma's office. That just feels. The glasses were reeded and had a certain quality about them, and again, shapes. There
Yeah.
was no plain glass. There was no plain glass in sight. Everything had a kind of what I saw as a Star Wars style or shape.
Hmm. The what was the inspiration for the wedding though? I mean, that girl's dress was like phenomenal, but I mean the florals and the the gathering part of the round tables and I mean the lighting and
Well,
everything is unbelievable.
um, I did. I mean, I have a really amazing researcher, and we just did a big. I don't, it's really hard to know. We just went we'd kind of start and we just dive in different directions, but um, I just looked, went into weddings, and
Mm,
but and what did and just do you know what I can't. There were various references that I saw, and I just thought that's really beautiful. And there was a reference I found of a table with organic kind of olive clouds above, and it just looked beautiful,
mhm,
and it felt ethereal, relevant to the Chandrillian culture, um, and the same with all the flowers and everything that was designed. I was got very into the food and flowers, and I the art of Japanese flower making became my very much my thing. So um all the flowers were very sculptural and very Star Wars in their feel.
mhm.
Everything, yeah. uh,
Yeah.
Um,
Oops. Yeah. I mean,
Especially actually the embassy. So it and the ones at the back on the pedestal. So everything
yeah.
was kind of sculptural and a little bit Japanesey, going back to kind of, George Lucas's, you know, there are lots of references to Japan with
Hmm.
George.
Yeah, this
So we kind of,
especially.
and
This
yeah, and again, I found this amazing reference, and I then just kind of developed that with the Ring of Flowers, and just thought, look, it looked really beautiful,
Yeah,
and Luke designed this amazing set on the round, and it kind of we both kind of came together with it, and it all worked, if that makes sense.
that's
So
beautiful.
yeah,
They do their dance in there. It's really beautiful, really beautiful.
yeah, yeah, and it's kind of this was all meant to be, stooped with tradition and,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, and a kind of really interesting cultural, um, yeah,
There's
traditions
a
of Australian.
okay. There's a wonderful, which I didn't have, but there's a wonderful like I don't know if it's like a trumpet or like the instruments that these three people are playing while they're doing
Oh
their
yeah, oh
dance.
yeah, yeah.
It's so fantastic. And I took a screenshot and I hate using screenshots because I feel like it doesn't always look good, but I was like, I have to ask about that. Like that, like, just as you were saying before, like coming up with everything, but designing new instruments is, I would think, rough. Like I think like that's
Yeah,
like
but I think that I mean, and that's also yeah the props team, and I think
yeah.
also um Tony was quite clear about the type of music. So the kind of instruments developed from the kind of type of music that he knew that he wanted. And also one of the instruments we used in season one and we changed it.
Mm.
There was a little bit of kind of borrowing from season one and changing it up. So one of the instruments is a kind of a remake of something we used in season one. And we kind of, but if you go dive into all the different Star Wars and you look at all their mad instruments, it was kind of like it's a homage to that, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. The
In a
bar
sort of more,
scene.
but in a more sophisticated wedding chandelier, style. I love that scene with him just lying on the bed.
This his character was fantastic, and the abrupt ending to him was really like, what? What? Kind of like
Yeah.
I felt very unexpected, and lends to I think how great this show is. Like I didn't really expect that whole episode, the like the massacre, there's a call like the big fight scene and everything was so good, and I'm sure so had to be so involved with set deck and like things falling over and how many takes and there's so much that goes into like fight scenes and choreography and
Yeah, and rehearsal after rehearsal,
yeah,
and and Tony was very involved with that too, and all the different directors, remember, because it wasn't just, because it's
right.
a series. So we had, yeah, all the different directors coming in and doing different parts, and um yeah, and there were many, we did plotted many plans. There were many rehearsals. It was, yeah, a lot of work went
Yeah,
into it
I know.
from all departments. Yeah.
This this to me, I love this scene, but I draw attention to the bed cover and
Oh, yeah.
your decision and like I oh and we all sometimes you get to influence things and I think, what if those are new bed covers? Like, what if she just designed like a whole new way to sleep? Like, it's great. It's beautiful.
It was, yeah. Oh, the bed, and the mattress and the cover.
Yeah.
Again, it just had to embody her character, actually. Dedra's character,
Oh, right.
really plain, really functional, plain, simple. Star Wars, there's a kind of language in Star Wars bedding that
Yeah.
is that that I understand now, and you carry it through. Um, and that also just, I don't know, non-fussy, really clean, really clinical. Her, so it was a kind of, it was a style, character thing, a Star Wars
Oh,
thing, and
right.
just a kind of, that was it, clean, simple, you know. Uh, and there was, I'd done quite a few beds actually,
Yeah.
and it was just like, right, it has to be like this, no fussiness,
It,
just, it was all like everything on her bedside table was, carefully, you know, separated. It just, the the apartment was really, really particular in everything,
Yeah,
you know, in
that's a great character to
every every item, every um, yeah, it had to be precise. Um, and so yeah, and most other things were kind of hidden away, and then her few kind of functional things on top. Oh, it was such fun. I love doing that. And then the um spinning center of the table was like inspired by a 1960s interior magazine
Oh.
where there was a table where I think it was the kind of cool thing in the 60s where, you know, some of the I don't know, in some of the interior magazines, they did a kind of, you know, a moving center table, like, you know, family sharing dinner. And I was like, oh my God, that's perfect. So yeah. And then it became, you know, the sort of main dinner scene for the fondue that
Oh,
I thought was a really fun idea.
it's a
I
great
don't know
scene.
why.
It's
Yeah.
it's a great scene.
Yeah.
I didn't even put in any of the medical stuff because I mean that alone, like I to design medical furniture is I don't know how you do that in only 6 months prep. You know what I mean? Like there's some things when you're like, how are we gonna do that in this amount of time and do medical and do spaceships and do convenience stores and this to me is a
Oh,
nightmare.
yeah.
This to me is a nightmare. Like, we have to do all the products. Like, how are we gonna get all this
Yeah. I
stuff?
mean, we started it. I mean, the thing is, you know, you have, as you know, being a set decorator, it's hugely creative, but actually you have to be really organized too, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I
Yeah.
kind of get organized, right? And then be creative. So we had, you know, so I know I know in my head what's going to take the longest time. I can be designing stuff, my buyers can be buying stuff. You know, so you have to so I was in the middle of researching, designing, drawing, prepping, making stuff for all the sets all the time, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So we were bubbling everything. And this set, we started at least 6 months before we did it
Yeah.
because it was a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
And in fact, we set the whole store up because it was on location in the prop store. So my buyers,
Oh,
every day, new products would come in, they go down, we'd kind of dress bits on the shelves. The graphics team would come down and go, okay, let's size that up. Okay, we're going to design a graphic for that. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So we almost dressed all this in the prop store. I mean,
wow.
obviously there were like the shelves and the counter and adaptions that we had to, I mean, designed the counter. Um, but you know, and a lot of the shelving, etc. But the products we kind of laid out on shelves and started. I mean, you know, Helen started buying for this 6 months in advance for
Mm.
everything because it was so much work.
It's a
Uh,
tremendous amount of work. And so I had to ask about it because it's all custom. I mean, you've
Yeah,
done everything
every bit.
custom here. It's
Every bit was thought
incredible.
about what
Yeah.
graphic, what color, what it was, you know, yeah, it was a massive amount of work. And, you know, obviously it's not a one-man band. I have amazing assistants. And so, you know, there was an assistant on that set called Sam, and, you know, she, you know, that was her job to see that through with the buyers, and you know we'd kind of check it every day and then we kind of read yeah
How
yeah.
how did you do this on locate? This was this was a location you said?
Yeah, it was like an abandoned shop in the middle of the Barbican Centre.
Mm.
So
Did
we did a fit out within 2 days. Construction went in, then we went in. Yeah, it was mad. That's why we had to kind of almost dress everything and then move it in.
Oh wow. What were
Yeah,
your
that was a big
other
deal.
where were your other locations? Like I mean, I know you're in the woods and I know you're like I get
Yeah,
that.
not many
Oh.
other locations actually, because we were kind of caught the tail end of the pandemic.
Mm,
Um, we kind of were going to be going away a lot, and then we ended up not going away. And then so we went to Valencia, as you know, for all the Scoldness party and all the Coruscant stuff.
mm.
And that was fun. But again, we had to design it and ship it all
Yeah.
out.
Right.
Um, and the big market scenes in a sort of there was a big market scene there. So Valencia, the Barbican,
It says, did you go to
Scott.
Scotland?
Did we go to? N no, we didn't. Did
No.
we go this? No, we went the first time.
Oh.
Oh
Oh,
my
maybe
God,
this
my
is double.
no,
I
we went the
quickly
first
looked up.
time round, but we didn't. No, we didn't. So it was Valencia. I mean, we were pretty much we went to several studios, so we didn't just, it wouldn't all fit in Pinewood. So
Wow.
we were, so we were,
Isn't
yeah.
that a problem?
We
We can't fit in Pinewood. We're gonna have
no, no, we were literally took over most of Pinewood, all the back lots. Then we had Longcross, where we did obviously the Rebel base, massive.
Ugh,
Ma
I can't. It's like I
you
can't.
can't even remember, you can't even, yeah, we did the massive Rebel base. I mean, it was massive. We did more than they did on Rogue One because we went outside and we had to do we did massive Rebel base. I mean, it was really, and we had to do that. We did all Cassian's World that you saw in the picture. That was, yeah. Anyway, we were all in so many studios.
Right.
We were everywhere, and this was on the Pinewood backlot.
This is
And
back.
we built this. I
This is
mean, that's the
incredible.
incredible thing about this show is that very, very little was visual effects. Visual effects were top ups, flying ships, and they did an amazing job, and they're a fantastic team. But Luke wanted to build everything, and he did. And this was such an impressive set.
Oh my
I
gosh,
mean,
yeah.
I
This.
mean, there's no, no CGI in sight or a little bit at the sides, etc. I mean, and this was composite sets. We walked into that building, went up to Sarah's office, all the shops.
I
I
don't
mean,
I don't I think it's I mean in a bigger conversation, it's unfair that this is television because you did 12 movies. You did
yeah,
12.
no, I agree. No, I agree. But
It's
and I
also
would love to
great.
see this
It's
in
also
a
great
film.
that it's television, but it's also like, oh my God, we did all that. But it's actually better to, I think, too, because you got to do 12 hours in a sense. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
condensed
So
to two
we
hours.
couldn't have done this. We couldn't have
No.
done this. We couldn't have. We couldn't have done so many sets. We couldn't have dived into character as much. Um, we got to do more than you do on a movie
Yeah.
because you had so much more screen time. It is a shame the sets were so big and so impressive that you don't get to see it on a big screen. I mean, I saw the screening. We saw the first three episodes on a big screen.
Hmm.
And
That's,
you go, oh my God, it's a shame the rest isn't. But we all worked in film.
yeah.
I've worked, this is the first TV show I've done, apart from something like a million years ago. So I work in film. So we all are filmmakers. So it was about a vision, and it didn't matter whether it was being seen on telly. We all were just driven by our vision, our vision. And if you have a vision, it doesn't matter whether you're showing it on TV or film, it's still, a big vision, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. And it's an incredible applaud to Disney for allowing it to be what it has to be in the epic sense of like how big this story is and letting the creatives do it, and not like, oh, cut it down, cut it down, cut it down. Like it's a complete full story, especially in 2 seasons. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
absolutely.
huge
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. And I think that's to the detriment. I mean, think that's not a detriment. That basically that's thanks to Tony, and
Mm.
also Tony had an amazing relationship with Luke and obviously Zan, the producer. Everyone kind of fought their corner and believed in it. The actors. I mean, the actors were great. Every time they came onto a set, they were like, "Wow!" You know,
so great.
I mean, yeah, I mean, really, they were so enthusiastic. Whether we'd put things in Cassian's drawer. I mean, it it was great because I suppose there was maybe an expectation when it's Star Wars that it's going to be a certain way. And so the fact that it was so character driven and every set was different and everything was so detailed, like a normal movie
Yeah,
where, always go into that much detail and we always put things in the drawers and we always think about everything. But I suppose the fact that it was Star Wars and it was like that too, and
yeah.
and the actors were so enthusiastic. They'd walk onto every set and go, "Oh my God, you guys did it again. How
Oh,
amazing."
oh, that's so
And it was so, yeah, they were so great. And every set they did it. And every set they were like, "Oh my God." Because also what was nice is every set for them was a surprise too, and it enhanced their characters
right.
or you know, um, their worlds, and they were like, wow. So it was great because I think, yeah, they kind of, hopefully we kind of help them,
Yeah. Well, you're
to
creating
kind
the
of
world for them,
feel that.
You're
Yeah,
creating,
yeah,
especially when it's something in fantasy. It's
yeah,
really, and I think too, when the actors really get into costume and they get into set, our jobs to help them really imagine the character better in their own space is really,
yeah,
that's all.
yeah, exactly. From Mon Mothma's, from the embassy in one, and also there's not much of the homestead minaret there, but they're kind of the
Yeah.
world in the crop.
Yeah.
And that
Now,
that kind of, that world and their homestead,
if I had
they're
2 hours with you,
kind
I
of,
would have, we could have just watched
yeah.
the episode.
Oh, that's a nice. I guess I didn't get to see. I have awful because I've been so busy on the
Oh,
Marvel Avengers. I
so
haven't
good.
seen all of it yet, and I'm not allowed to watch it without my son.
Oh, well
So,
then, don't,
and he's doing his exams at the moment. Oh, that's nice. That's
yeah,
a good shot.
beautiful. The tones and like you bring in the metal and then I mean, there's so much collaboration with costumes too in this, which I can imagine.
Yes, and Michael it is a fantastic costume designer, and yeah, yeah, those sideboards were really
Oh,
fun to design,
beautiful.
and the desk, and because she's so sophisticated and
Yeah.
clever, Mama, and
I
had the
l-
line, and the lines and her
yeah.
world, and yeah,
I love her hair,
um,
like she changes through the whole second season too so much.
yeah,
The
yeah, she
hair
does.
and the wardrobe changes and the jewelry and like it's like she's
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Michael did a marvelous job, and what was lovely is it was that we all kind of came together, and I think that collaboration between me, Luke, and Michael, the costume designer, we all sort of, I feel we all enhanced each other's,
oh, oh definitely.
work. I mean, I think, yeah, Luke's a very, very clever designer, and the fact that he fought to build, pretty much most of Andor,
Yeah.
um, wouldn't have happened without him. Do you know what I mean? He really
Yeah.
fought for that,
Yeah.
um, and and I think, it's, yeah, amazing show, and it looks. And what's fantastic is everyone's talking about the way it looks,
It, it's
which is really, really exciting to kind of, get some acknowledgement. And when we poured our hearts and souls into it, it's really nice to get such positive feedback.
I am such an advocate for this show. I was so bummed when it wasn't recognized on the first season for the Emmys for design. I really kind of berated like people like how
Oh,
do you
that's nice.
not vote for that? How is
But I
that
think
not
people understood, but people
our
didn't
standard?
understand,
I don't
did
get
they?
it. So
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan. I tell everyone about this show. I tell everyone to watch this show for the design elements. And this is a standard now for TV. Like it is. Like, and I've worked in sci-fi. I've worked in like we're doing movies. It's
Yeah.
not that, we
Yeah.
don't, and we also do the TV shows and you get less budget and you make it work. We're problem solvers like that. But to me that like Andor on like Star Wars on TV, that's a huge standard and that should be recognized. And I tell everyone, I tell
Yeah.
everyone about it.
I, you know what? I think that we were I suppose I never expected anything, but I suppose I wasn't surprised because I think on season one, I don't think people really understood that we had built most of the sets. I think there was a misconception that a lot of it was visual effects because visual effects were acknowledged for an Emmy and
Mm.
they deserve it and they're very clever. But actually, there was a misconception, I think, that more of it was visual effects than design. And I think that it's only now in season two that people are realizing, oh my God, they actually, both in season one and in season two, they built all these sets. They were composite sets, they were massive sets. We built towns, we built, everything.
Oh yeah,
And
those streets. I mean, obviously, I don't even know what your set count could have been per episode. I mean, it had to be like
hundreds,
hundreds.
hundreds.
It's
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
hundreds, hundreds. And they were all built. There wasn't anything, we didn't ever stick people in front of a blue screen. Everything was built and everything, so I think that now people are realizing that. But I think in season one, unless you've worked on a job and you really understand design and filmmaking, I think it's very hard. And also good visual effects and good design, you shouldn't understand how
right.
you if yeah, you should no one, unless you worked on it, it should be seamless. So I
Right.
don't think I think there was a preconception that a lot of it was visual effects on the first one, and it wasn't. 90% was designed. And I think now people are realizing because they can see
Yeah.
that 90% of this was designed, and now they're realizing and season one was too.
Do
And
you
that was a massive feat.